Paul Champ joins us now in Ottawa. Mr. Champ, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Michael.
Now, amongst the people speaking will be your client, Zexi Lee. She'll be appearing before the inquiry as she, for people who may have forgotten, is the Ottawa resident who sought and with your representation got an injunction against the blaring horns in the city's downtown core. What do you hope the inquiry gets from her?
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Miss Lee is going to be testifying about the experiences of downtown residents. There's going to be a few other witnesses who testify about that, but Miss Lee had not only her own personal experiences, but she was also trying to assist other people in her building who were more vulnerable, seniors who couldn't go outside and so forth. So she'll be talking about those experiences, as well as the serious harassment that she experienced once her name became known and associated with the horn injunction. So that will be her part in the inquiry.
How serious did the harassment get?
Well, the Ottawa Police and the RCMP were in regular contact with us. At one point her address was doxed, as they say, and there were some threats online. The Ottawa Police did a couple of times come to her apartment without us calling, like they came because of intelligence they were getting. So it definitely was a very unpleasant and scary experience for her.
And again, all related to the protest itself. Now, you also represent business and community associations from Ottawa's Centretown area. Talk to us about how they were affected by the occupation, what you hope comes out of their testimony before the inquiry.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not sure how much people from across Canada understand about how profoundly impacted the residents and businesses and workers of downtown Ottawa were. Because of the trucks covering such a large area, it was almost impossible to get in and out of downtown Ottawa with vehicles. The trucks were idling all the time. So that the diesel fumes for anyone who had respiratory issues or didn't have respiratory issues were having breathing problems. And then the horns, the horns were absolutely deafening and were going on for several hours every day, early in the morning to late at night. Fireworks were going off in the middle of the night, like shooting off people's windows. There was gas cans and propane tanks everywhere, right beside open fires, and businesses had to shut down. The vast majority of businesses in downtown Ottawa shut down because they simply couldn't operate. They couldn't get their supplies in. Customers weren't coming, and to the extent they opened their doors, they would often be overrun with large numbers of the convoy protesters who refused to wear masks and became belligerent and aggressive if they were asked to wear masks. So, it was really a terrible time for the people of downtown Ottawa.
Mm-hmm. So businesses, associations, individual residents, all affected by this protest. And earlier today we were speaking with journalist Justin Ling, and he has reported extensively on some of the more troublesome elements of the protest, in particular some of the organizers behind this protest. Do you have any concerns? Did you have any concerns about the individuals involved and dissenting in the Ottawa area?
Well, Michael, I think there was a real big mix of people who came to Ottawa for those protests. There's no doubt that, a lot of people in Canada, well, everyone in Canada were affected by the lockdowns and, caused a lot of distress to everyone. It was hard for everybody. And, some people, unfortunately, reacted in a different way and became very fearful for themselves and their families and were opposed to vaccines. And, people like that who were just opposed to the vaccines and the vaccine passports and issues like that, and they wanted to protest that. That was fine, but there was a lot of other elements for sure in those groups who I think, unfortunately, were maybe exploiting other people who were simply protesting because they were concerned about vaccine passports.
Mm-hmm. I want to pick up on that because, of course, here you are famously a human rights lawyer, as someone who has fought for the protection of civil liberties in this country. Did protesters go too far in their actions in trying to express their opinions?
Yeah, Michael, I'm big believer in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms being like the defining values of Canada. And, freedom to protest, freedom of assembly, freedom of association are core fundamental freedoms in our country and in any democratic society. So, when these protesters first arrived in Ottawa, I fully supported their right to protest. There was going to be some inconvenience. There was going to be some interference with day-to-day lives of other people in Ottawa, but that goes along with protests and demonstrations. When people come together to protest, whatever the cause, whatever the issue, that's generally a great thing for democracy. People organizing together is something that should be celebrated and generally not investigated. But what happened in Ottawa definitely did cross the line. It took me several days to really kind of process about the impact of what was going on in Ottawa, and the trucks, the semi trucks that were parked everywhere, 400 semi trucks, bumper to bumper, throughout residential neighborhoods, idling all the times and blasting those deafening horns was really something else. People can protest, but trucks aren't people. And it became clear that it was really causing a lot of harm to the people in Ottawa, and ultimately was crossing a line. And that's how we got involved, and I've been working on this case ever since.
Working on it even before the Emergencies Act was invoked. But really, when we talk about this commission of inquiry, it's there to determine whether or not the government was actually justified in invoking the act. From where you stand, from a legal point of view, do you think the bar was met for the invocation?
Well, Michael, the group that we're representing, the Ottawa Coalition of Businesses and Residents, we aren't taking a formal position on the invocation of the Emergencies Act. Was the formal criteria met? But we are wanting to see that it's clearly on the record that there was chaos and disorder in Ottawa for a prolonged period of time. People weren't able to make medical appointments. People weren't able to get groceries. People weren't able to use public transit. People weren't able to work, and that there were failures here. The fact that the Ottawa police and other police services weren't able to effectively respond in the first few weeks of that protest is a serious concern. And we definitely want it on the record about how people in Ottawa were impacted, and we're looking forward to learning, where the breakdowns were, why there could not have been more effective action earlier in that protest.
Paul, really appreciate the time. Thank you for this.
Thanks so much, Michael.
And that's Paul Champ.